All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another week of the Casters Lounge. We're here with some more casters, all of which you've of course seen before, all of which you may have seen during the ESNL Season 7 Champions Division qualifiers. Obviously, Dan Chan, Dom Phillips, CSGO at the top. They casted the first one, me and Grev here at the bottom, we casted the second. So only fitting then that we're the ones to talk you through said qualifiers and more, of course. We've got plenty to talk about with not just one season upcoming, like usual. We also have two divisions within that, or two tiers in a way, for this upcoming season. So more than usual to talk about, I'd say, for a pre-season podcast. Not that we've had too many seasons of those, but first, before any of that, and before the inevitable Frank discussion and such, I'm just gonna try and welcome people that are able to be welcomed. So maybe not Dan in the top left, taking a big chug. Grevling,
Chug.
you seem available.
Yeah.
What's up?
Wow. Available. Is that the new thing I'm described by?
Yeah,
Hey, what's up, bro?
that's
I'm
why
good.
you're here, essentially.
Yes.
What have you been doing in the week? Obviously, it's Monday, so
yeah, the week's just started,
Last
so
week.
really nothing of interest. I've honestly just been sitting here waiting for this to start, and so now we're gonna get this over with. So
that's the
see
mentality.
how well it goes.
Right.
Yes.
Cool. Dan Shan, top left. After swallowing.
Sorry.
He's got it down him now. He's all right.
What's up?
Good boy.
Yeah, I'm doing good. I mean, swallowing's my speciality. I've gotten that one down quickly. Did nosh down a bit of some noodles before.
Not the
Yeah,
only thing you've been knocking on by the
we've
sounds
been
of
here
it,
for about we've been here for about we've been here for about an hour before the start of the show
no.
in professional manner. Well, some of us, the ones that weren't late, and we've just sort of been here for Dan Shan's eating special, where the human garbage disposal has sort of taken anything into his mouth, but
Yeah. I'm thinking of starting an OnlyFans with all this coronavirus stuff going on. I'm just going to make it ASMR food
Definitely.
eating.
some
I
of
think
that,
that's the quality that
OnlyFans.
people want right now.
some of that
You'll
Dan
earn
Shan
more money for that than
mukbang.
you will working for C-Star League. Just saying, pay that past their casters. Big up Sully for tweeting about it. They need to pay their casters. College at Star League, do your shit and do it properly. Pay your casters.
the Dan
Oh,
Shan
Lord.
This has been a public service announcement.
Yeah. I
came
know,
out of nowhere
do
as
it for
well.
a toss.
But the Dan Shan mukbang anyway. That's where we've started. Dom, how have you started your week?
I've been out for a walk with some friends early on a socially distanced basis. Celebrated my birthday over the weekend. Had a decent week, doing a lot of exercise, feeling quite good. And I'm ready to get back onto the grind with some ESNL now because it feels like so long since that grand final against Granite. I think I'm all ready for season 7 now.
Where were you doing this
sounds-
exercise, Dom? Was
I
this
was
on stream exercise?
Ooh.
Actually, no. The majority of my exercise has been either out for a run, out for a cycle, out for a walk.
I don't
or
trust that
doing
considering the
workouts in my
stamina.
bedroom.
I don't trust that considering the stamina of that on
His
stream
cycle
workout.
is
I did
considered taking
13
the
miles
bicycle out of the
yesterday.
shed. and
Regard-
there you go, that's
regardless-
cycling
runs inside. 13 miles yesterday.
Regardless, Dom does sound like the most productive one here, so he's won one award, but not more. Not more
I mean,
to
I've
come,
not really got much
perhaps.
competition. I've not got much competition, have I? So.
Speaking of achievements that may or may not be worth celebrating, this one may be more so. We saw the qualifiers, all of us, to varying degrees. I think we'll start in quite logical order with that first one. It was quite a while back now. Obviously, we've had some shows that should have happened, but maybe haven't. Some that also shouldn't happen and haven't as well. So, but yeah, we had, I think on the 6th and 7th of June, we had that first qualifier a couple weekends back, and even though it is maybe quite far past in memory, Dan Chan, Dom Phillips at the top, they casted the final, of course. skilled enough, won it out in the end against Frank in a pretty routine manner. Any thoughts about sort of the qualifier in general, the sort of maybe the standard of play? Was there anything to note there, positive or negative?
I mean, looking at it, you sort of you can't tell fully until you obviously see these teams in action against the teams that are already sort of like directly invited into the league, into the Champions Division. But you're always going to sort of have these as sort of the punching bags of the league in some regards. And they're not going to be the ones to win it, are they? They're going to be the ones who are going to be fighting for like not being relegated for next season. So obviously, there's a spot up for grabs from the Challenger season, isn't there? So yeah, it's going to be about them just trying to keep themselves in that Champions Division. Maybe take some upset wins, take some wins against the team sort of lower down. But yeah, I mean, they're obviously the best candidates because they won the qualifiers, so they're obviously the best candidates to take those spots. But you can't see them doing too much.
No, I mean, outside of what Dan was saying there, like obviously I have experience watching teams at the bottom of the league scrap their way to survival when they're not that good, and I just had to say that. But no, the qualifiers weren't. I didn't sit there and think these are amazing. We've got some really good competitive teams in the league, but I didn't sit there and think these are just going to get banged out. I still feel like the likes of UB team, especially from Qualifier 2, which we'll talk about more, but skilled enough. You know, they've got Maha, who's a good player on Famous 5. They're looked good against Frank in the final, who would sort of become the dark horses of the qualified, so to speak. So I think they're not going to go in there and just be punching bags. They're not exactly going to compete up at the top with some of these lit teams that are doing really well in advance. But they're not. But they're going to put up a fight, I think, and not necessarily finish bottom.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was sort of the first time we've had a CIS final of anything. We don't have a lot of CIS presence, at least in the current moment, or in history, sort of the ESN. But now suddenly we've had Famous 5 for a couple seasons. That's been the main one with a couple players from Moldova, from Russia, etc. But Skilled Enough and Frank both, I think they were through and through straight Russian. Interesting to see that dynamic play out. As again, maybe that dynamic and those types of storylines, as you mentioned with Frank, were a little better than the final itself, wouldn't you say, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Frank, they sort of gained a bit of a cult status from those qualifiers. They weren't able to perform in the second one, but yeah, I think they've gained up quite a bit of following, a lot of people rooting for them. But yeah, I mean, I just personally don't see him doing much, to be honest, in Champions Division. I mean, obviously Frank didn't make it through, but skilled enough. Are they skilled enough? Probably not.
Well, no, I knew that pun.
I thought that pun was going to come in the season, maybe not before the season. A new low has been touched.
I think I probably already used it in the actual qualifier game.
Yeah, we both used it in the final.
Yeah.
Definitely both used it in the final.
I mean, it's right in front, so why not just grab it? A bit of a harder.
To be frank, it was an easy one.
Yeah,
I was about to say that, you asshole.
It does sting a little, maybe.
Like a wasp.
Like a wasp.
Oh,
But
jeez.
I think the hardest pun to
Thanks,
make.
Strom. Teed me up there.
The
Hit a home run.
The hardest pun team would probably have been Uganda Juice. I don't see anyone. It's good that they didn't make it through just for
I couldn't have dealt with casting them for a season. It wouldn't have been possible.
I'm actually sat there
Here
not
comes
competing
the
in like
juice.
Challenger Division or anything like that, because that would have been
They are.
hilarious.
You'll be very
They
happy
are?
to know that they are. They've switched name to, I believe, Juggernaut. So they are competing. So you're going to be very happy.
Well, it's still not the same. I mean, most of the hype behind behind the team became behind the name, so
Definitely.
Still no Frank though, or at least unless they have also gone under a different name.
But that would be sacrilegious, wouldn't it, to change it out from Frank? No, yeah,
Blasphemy.
I think one of the main takeaways from this first qualifier was really sort of, we've obviously had qualifiers in the past for season 5 specifically. We had those qualifiers into it, but I think this is the first time where, considering we had some teams that like you knew the name. Blink, for example, just popped to mind. I think this was a real sort of reality check in that, these teams can't just like in any qualifier, really, even if you have some quite good name value in some of the teams, in that it is just best of ones and a bunch of teams that you have to slog through that you've never heard of. Maybe no one heard of Frank before this one. Someone like Blink, etc. I think it was a bit of a reality check that they can't just sort of breeze through it, despite maybe what they would have hoped for in a way. But I think in the end, though, I'm pretty happy with Skilled Enough being the team to make it through. I think they looked like the best team in that first qualifier, just through and through. Sort of, I think they had a bit of an easier run, to be quite frank. In general,
you can't reuse it. You can't reuse the same one, Strom.
He was going to say, to be fair, he went, actually.
Yeah.
Actually, I can squeeze one in here. I can get my clout points.
Yeah, he forced it a bit, didn't he? He forced it.
They had a bit of an easier run, I'd say, honestly. Obviously, it's my typical thing to try and shit on Phantom's Ignite as much as I can, but yeah, just in general, a bit of an easier run than some of the other teams. But I still think they were probably the best team of that first qualifier. Now, I think we're going to move on to that second one now, and I'm not sure if, despite UB team also playing in that first qualifier, of course, I think they lost out in like the round of 16, in a French derby, you could call it, against 1X. Got pretty battered. I thought they were never really in that game, but still they came up in the second qualifier, and it really showed that qualifiers, it's very much about sort of who's there on that day, and they proved that for sure. They really just beat the best teams that were there, I think, and then sort of made it through. And possibly, I'm not sure which team would be better, Skilled Enough or UB team. Maybe we'll quickly address that later in how they'll do in the actual Champions Division. But first, any thoughts about that second qualifier, Rev? Just general speaking.
Honestly, I think it was the better of the two qualifiers, because we had more, I'd say, more competition in between the teams, not as much as those punching bags, as Dan just said. I mean, everyone, if you could look up from like almost like the round 3 area, it's like everyone here had a decent chance of taking it, and it was like a struggle for everyone to get on further and further. So I'm very happy with the way it went out, and I'm also congrats to UB team for making and finishing up on that one. Beat Blink, who well, at least they beat Phantom's Ignite, so they have that going for them.
And speaking of sort of achievements that aren't worth celebrating in a way,
yep.
Second
place in a qualifier. Good job.
Yeah, you didn't get anything for finishing second in this case. Although obviously you did get that that sort of discount into Challenger Division, where I think most of the teams, especially in that second qualifier, that sort of came maybe round of 16 or the quarterfinals. I think most of them have actually signed up now for challengers, which I think we'll talk a little bit about later. Which, that to me sort of validates that point that you made there as well. Like, I think the teams saw that it was just very competitive. Anybody could really won it. Masonic, Blink in the semi-final, for example, they went to overtime in a very thrilling nuke game. UB team Native to Empire, despite Native to Empire not really getting to double digits, I think it was a really, really close game as well. I think Dom casted that one, the semi-final. What do you?
Yeah, I did.
Do you share that sentiment?
Yeah, it was like, even though it was like a single figures, as you say, it wasn't like UB team absolutely went and banged out into it. You can see that there was a lot of qualities to enter it, but I just think UB team handled them fairly strongly and comfortably. It wasn't the most difficult win they've ever had, but simultaneously it wasn't as easy as perhaps the scoreline may have indicated. And I think I'm going to echo your sentiment about the second qualifier being better. I think UB team are going to do a lot better in this league than Skilled Enough are. I think, if you look at players like Malikoff, the IGL, who's really strong, even players like that around him, I think they've just got a much better chance of succeeding in this league. I think they're a really good team to come to the qualifiers, actually, especially after such a disappointing show in qualifier 1. The way they turned it up in qualifier 2. I mean, especially on the first day. Didn't they go they just demolished all of their opponents on the first day, I think, and then they came for the semi-final and final. They didn't look as good, but they were still good enough to take it home. And I just feel like, taking all that into account, UB team are going to be really good next season, and a team to look out for, actually.
Yeah, they've had a really strong season in ESCA Intermediate, I think it is.
Definitely.
Like they really I think they're 11-4 at the moment. So
sounds about right.
Yeah, and I think just in general they look like a pretty cohesive unit. They've obviously been working a lot together, so I think they can do some good stuff. But I still stand by my earlier statement. I don't think they're going to do much in terms of challenging for top spaces. It's going to be they're just going to be sort of relegated to the bottom half of the table. I think for that Champions Division. I don't think anything more is going to be more is sort of unreasonable.
Yeah, but before they even made it to that Champions Division, they did have that final, which certainly felt like a bigger challenge than anything they'd had previous. A real test of stamina, not just on the teams, but us as casters as well. Am I right, Krev?
Yeah.
It was quite a final to behold. Not maybe fully in its quality. It was a free mapper. It did include some of the maps that we saw in sort of the ESN Season 6 final, and it did go very toe-to-toe in the final map. But besides that, I don't think there are many comparisons that you can make between this and the ESN Season 6 final in general.
Nah, I mean, it was kind of... I mean, the fact that it went to 3 maps and the only best of 3 that was around, I mean, still, it's not bad, not horrible, but I mean, I don't really remember any highlight plays from any of it.
I think there were a couple, but yeah, it wasn't a fantastic.
It definitely wasn't a show match. I mean, it wasn't. It's not Star Spangled on all everyone's firing on all cylinders. I mean, yeah.
I think
it was a final for a qualifier, and there you have it.
I think the first 2 maps especially as well are very forgettable. Dust to 16-8 to UB team. Train, I think it was 16-7 to Blink, and then it was sort of the final map. Maybe not even the first half, just the second half of the final map that was sort of the entertaining part of it for me. Nuke obviously finishing 16-14 in UB team's favor in almost a very ridiculous manner. That second half, which I thought was entertaining, but to get to that entertaining point, you also had to sort of slog through quite a bit else, which again, something that can't be said for something a good final like the SNL Season 6 final, granted, but it was 5.
I mean, the whole final of that qualifier too just felt quite laboured and drawn out for me as a spectator, obviously, because I know you two were behind the mic. But
definitely,
the whole way through, did you think UB team would win, or did you really think the Blink could sort of take it?
Honestly, I went super back and forth. Obviously, on the first map, in that UB team won. I think even the scoreline misrepresents how dominant they were in a way. It really didn't feel too competitive from Blink's side on Dust 2. I thought UB team were a shoe-in, but then Blink, they sort of just subverted those expectations fully on Train. And I thought, considering Train, I mean, the way that both teams played was very frag-heavy style. Again, as Grev sort of mentioned, it felt very qualifier finally, in that, it wasn't a great display of tactical teams working their magic, trying to anti-strat each other. It was not to hark back to it, it's over and over, but the final in ESN Scene 6, but it was more just a display of, well, they have some positives, some negatives, some clear player weaknesses that the other team exploited, but also, I don't know, I feel like it was deserved in the end by UB team. I do feel like they also had, since it was just such an individual fight, the individual players that were better should win. And that was the case. Malikov, as you've already mentioned, Dom, that's the IGL, I believe. He was outrageous, honestly, in his fragging. Ninus on that op was fantastic, all qualifier. Yeah, a couple more as well that were just, outstanding. So I think they deserved it, but I'm not so sure if I was sure that they were going to win all the way through.
It was just watching 3 pug maps after each other.
Yeah,
like
kind of.
You can't really expect it.
Yeah.
People had a good time. People, did everything they could, and well, there you have it. Win is a win, and UB team they're going over towards Champions Div now, and that's going to be interesting to see how they manage with that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've already sort of glanced over it a little bit in how we think they'll do, but when you sort of bring up some of the names now, it does sort of feel like UB team and skilled enough, and I guess Scape as well, obviously coming through that Portuguese qualifier that was even before the first one, where they actually did quite well as well. I think those 3 teams, they sort of stick out like sore thumbs amongst all these other teams that either have proven themselves substantially in ESN, or at least to some level in ESN. Someone like Revenge even could be thrown into that, but especially someone like Granite, someone like Budapest 5, or have just proven themselves in ESCA or other sort of major competitions. Just a bunch of advanced teams like AGF and so forth. I think they surely won't be doing all too hot. At the best, I can see them beating a big academy, a Revenge, but yeah, I'm not so sure if I even see them sort of staying up and grabbing a spot for season 8 in Champions.
Yeah.
No, all right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, just to make clear, what it actually sort of means. If you finish bottom, you are getting relegated. But I think if you just finish like towards I think we do have a graphic for it that would obviously be released closer to the season. Still a couple weeks off. It's not even this month that it's starting. I think that if you're towards the end of the table, you still have a chance to stay up with the relegation playoff we'll be having, because obviously the first place team in Challenger will be going up as sort of an invite team, but also the second place team, the ones that made it to the final, they'll get a chance to still qualify in through those relegation playoffs, which they could be quite something to keep us entertained through the off season in a way. Anyway, no, I didn't. It wasn't a question, regardless. So
yeah,
don't feel
I thought so. Considering there wasn't really anything to say, you were just stating facts.
Exactly.
A little bit of clarification from Matt just came in. First and
the clarification is what Stromis just said.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah, but first place in Challenger goes straight towards Champions, and second place gets a relegation.
So exactly what I said, Grev. So please,
yes,
I know my stuff.
16th,
yes,
they are the 2-1 going
exactly
down.
what Stromis said, except saying it came from Matt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Matt is the one in control here. We're just his puppets, and we're gonna smile on the camera when it's Q.
How dare you question me, Dan?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the facial expression was for, but
I just cracked my neck twice on the way over. Oh, that was glorious.
Do you want to, since I was stating facts, you want to sort of state some opinions on, because we've already talked a little about the teams in for next season in Champions Division, but anything you want to bring up there? Either sort of any interesting matchups or anything just just anything really. I think you've been watching quite a bit, so indulge me.
No. No. Yeah,
No.
I mean, like, me and Nexus have been doing quite a bit, to be fair. And, like, for example, you have teams such as, like, Dr. Pepper Team. Not many people sort of know of them. I mean, obviously, they've got, like, the big branding behind them, but not a very, like, well-known team. Polish. They're doing pretty decent in, like, ESEA. Obviously, they've been banging out a lot of Fools 10-6 in main. They've taken wins against teams like CEX, so we're another team inside of Champions Division. So it's like they've also played Revenge, lost against them.
Yeah, it's been a really
they won against the big academy as well, so they should be a really strong team this season.
Yeah. I think there's been a weird dynamic, right, where Revenge. I think the sort of reason why they grabbed an invite spot despite not finishing sort of the top of last season, or even in the final. I think it's just because they have that upset potential. Honestly, I think they're a really exciting team to have, and that's shown off in what you've mentioned there. They beat someone like Dr. Pepper Team, but then they go on to lose to quite what we could consider sort of a worse team, or at least reputation-wise, a bit of a worse team. But I think it is quite interesting, isn't it, Dom? Sort of the dynamic of having just, unlike before, we've had so many of these teams. They've already played each other, whether it be in advanced or in main, ESCA wise, or just in other sort of qualifiers and such. How big of a part does it play, do you think? And do you even agree that it's an interesting sort of storyline to have at all?
I think it's an interesting story, and I think you've got to take some sort of stock in it, because obviously these are the two teams playing against each other in a best of one. The same way that, well, obviously the format's different in the SNL, but like there will be still BO1s played and obviously BO3s. These teams are playing against each other at the end of the day, and that's a massive sounding board and a massive insight into how they play against each other. But at the same time, like, we've seen so many teams that have come into ESNL and been amazing in ESEA, fated to win the league, and then only got to like the quarterfinals. Or we've seen teams that have done not as well in ESEA come in and win. So while ESEA is and other qualifiers are something to take a level of stock in, it's not gospel. And I feel like the only way that we'll know how teams will play against each other in ESNL is by watching them play each other in ESNL.
I think it's all about those best of ones, honestly. They are something that you do have to sort of scrutinize a little bit.
Take with a pinch of salt, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. Well, we've gone through that. I mean, I think we'll have to talk a little about the Challenger division as well. I think it's just been confirmed the 52 teams playing this season. Just a lot.
It's outrageous.
Yeah, it is outrageous. Again, it sort of feels like it's not even one season we're preparing for. It feels like it's a couple. And I mean, it's definitely a mixed bag when it comes to challengers, as we could have expected. It's a mix sort of these qualifier teams that we've been seeing, some teams that we've seen before, some orgs that we've seen before, and the Portuguese as well. That can't go unnoticed.
Big up Raphael for paying some of the entry fees to sort of encourage the Portuguese team to get involved with Challenge Division.
Yeah, paying some.
Some
is
an understatement.
He played a lot. He was very instrumental in sort of bulking out the season a lot. So I think a lot of credit has to go to Raphael. Raphael pays GK, isn't it? PAIS GK on Twitter. Our guy.
Shout out. Grev, how do you think the Portuguese will fare against? Because to me, in that we have quite a widespread of just the other teams. It feels like it's just the Portuguese side, which is sort of half of the league almost in some weird fashion, that are going up against the world, or at least the rest of Europe. But I understand that it's quite hard to sort of say, as a result of that, in that nearly half the teams are from Portugal, to say where or how the Portuguese in general will do, but how will the Portuguese in general do?
You can literally put them anywhere.
Yeah.
That's the wonderful thing right now.
Will
They
any-
are all
will-
over the seed. Like they're on the top, the bottom, the middle. They can be anywhere, and they can
Will-
also place everywhere.
Will any Portuguese team win? If I rephrase,
Probably.
Honestly, that's
the odds are for them.
much
aren't they?
better of a
That they
question.
actually
I
do.
mean,
by law,
yeah.
by the law of averages, they should realistically.
I mean,
it
there
could.
are definitely more possibilities than in the previous season. I can just say it like that
Mm.
immediately. Because we still have teams like, well, let's take a quick look. Equinox still around. They're definitely a bigger contender in the
Now known
Portuguese scene.
Now known as Tropa Suprema Evolution, I think. If I'm not
Well,
mistaken.
ex Equinox,
Yeah.
now whatever that was. And they're honestly, I haven't seen a lot of these Portuguese teams play. I haven't seen, how they do anything. So it's going to be really interesting to see which one of them's make it through. Because really, the big thing is going to be like so-called streamed or literally streamed on the ESN is going to be the finals and the finals week.
I think
So-
the playoffs in general, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe
Yeah,
you're
I
right.
think it's all the playoffs.
Could be finals. I'm
Yeah.
going to double check on that.
It's
It's the
not just.
playoffs.
I don't think it's just the grand finals, but at least finals weekend. I think we can guarantee.
Yes, finals weekend. Says they're on ESN.
That's it. Yeah. So we will only see the cream of the crop in a way, which I think is good considering the variety and skill level, to put it nicely. Yeah. Any teams stick out to any of you that you've sort of kept an eye on already and think that they'll make it through to champions next season, or just
Can I
do well here?
can I
I mean,
sound the
ye-
Wasps klaxon or not?
Yeah,
Am
you
I-
can
am I
definitely.
allowed
I was
to?
going to bring them
I
up
think-
if any of you didn't.
I think they're up there, and I think if they keep their roster stable together, because I think in the first qualifier they had to play with Konzi, who's sometimes their coach as well. So as long as they have a stable five and it's their 5 players and not their coach involved, and they can sort of stick together,
Hmm.
improve, then there's no reason why with their individuals and a better system behind them, they can
Yeah,
really do some serious
I
damage
think-
in Challenge Division.
I think they did just swap out a player actually, but other than that, I think Wasps have been one of the most stable teams in sort of this tier of CS, especially in the UK scene, right? Like it is not known for sticking together for like half a year. But yeah, they did actually. I think they played in the lockdown event that we had during the ESNL season 6 season. Like parallel to that, we also had the lockdown cup, and I think they played in that, if I'm not mistaken, and did quite well. Maybe I'm confusing them for someone else. Regardless, they did play in the qualifiers, didn't they? And I mean, they got to the semis in the first one. I think they got to the quarters or so in the second, and beating out teams a lot like Blink along the way. I think
16-12 on Nick.
I think if they sort of get a if they get that roster move in their favor, where that roster move is a roster move just as an improvement, then yeah, I think they'll definitely be up there for sure.
I think as another solid shout, I think Famous Five, like
Oh,
they've
yeah.
had some obviously some great seasons in ESNL recently, and like obviously they're really high seeded as well, so it's
It's easy.
I mean,
to
how
say,
can you not? Yeah, how can you not say Famous Five at this point? As I just accidentally hit my mic, but
I
yeah,
think,
it's
personally, actually, I think Famous Five won't do that well. To be honest, they played in the qualifiers. Not particularly impressed with what I saw there. They've also, since last season, where they did do quite well, still semi-final is nothing to scoff at, especially when you lose out to the eventual winners in Granite. In very respectable fashion as well, it must be added. But I think since then they've replaced and they've downgraded to some extent. Obviously, we already mentioned Maha. He went to Skilled Enough, and I mean they got into Champions Division.
And now he's playing a division above his old team.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of.
I think he was honestly maybe not the glue that kept them together, but I think he was such a fundamental part of that
Integral.
team that, you know, seeing him leave is definitely not something they were hoping to. I think the replacement as well, not to single out, but I think it's Principal who's come in to replace him. Again, not too impressed there, and as a team they look just worse in general. There's, for me, maybe a slight chance, but definitely not a massive chance of a Famous Five doing something sort of going deep here.
It's been a while since we last seen them play. Remember that?
Qualifiers.
As well as with the qualifiers, it was just best of one game, so it's like you do have to take it with a pinch of salt. Not many were played, as you said earlier. It is just like a bad day. That's the entire qualifier out in.
No, yeah, I definitely would have agreed.
But at the same time,
I just meant sort of like considering they played in both as well, and again, sort of 2 bad days on 2 separate weeks. It's nothing that I'm too excited about.
And at the same time, wasn't their best form in the Lockdown Cup, which is when there were more best of ones as well?
I think
the loss of Maha as well.
I think their best.
If you look at the season itself,
yeah,
like they did well to get as far as they did, but they were riding off the steam of that momentum in the Lockdown Cup. They're a very hot and cold team. One moment they're on fire and you just can't touch them.
Yeah.
And they've got players like Vorchin who are just popping off. He's a talented player regardless, by the way. But when they're not on that, when they're not in form, they're quite scrimmy, quite puggy, quite basic, make simple mistakes, and they're quite easy to take down. So, and I feel like now that momentum from the Lockdown Cup seems to have withered away, whether they'll be up there, but I don't think they'll be up there right at the top competing for promotion to Champions.
I think the fact, they'll
playoff stage then in that case? Is that a possibility?
I think that's definitely, considering their seed, they should be making it to playoffs. We've got 16 teams making it to playoffs, remember? And I think they're 3rd in the seedings, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, yeah.
So, that should be the case, but is playoffs really the aim for this team? A team that made it to the semi-final again, as you mentioned, won the Lockdown Cup, and against, the likes of Budapest 5 are playing in Champions Division. Revenge as well were in that. So, I really don't think that they are going to reach much further than playoffs, but I also don't think they should be too happy over playoffs.
No. They're a team that should be aiming for the top spot. What I'm saying is that I don't think they will get there.
Yeah. The team at the top spot, seedings-wise, is Go Bananas. Now, I was feeling pretty sad before this season, because I realized that for the first time in a long time, I wouldn't be able to see a certain Swede, compete. But that's all changed now. Seacon, of course, is the one I'm talking about. The most consistent fragger I think we've witnessed at all. There's a lot you can say about him.
Honestly, that's the baseline, isn't it?
Yeah, the baseline for him is more closer to 30 frags than anything else when he's played in these seasons. I think Go Bananas as a team, they have done quite a few changes. Obviously, what they did was they brought in, I think that maybe a majority even, sort of 3 players from XTC, and use them. So it's Ketz, Seacon, and Libben, I think, who have come in from XTC. Paired those together with 2 that are staying on from last season, or just from Go Bananas in general, who are in main, which it was done quite recently, so I'm still not sure if we can judge that experiment so far, but I feel like they may get judged based on this Challenger Division performance, because again, as that top team, which you can't say they're sort of the team in main that everyone's expecting to go up. They're not the most highly rated in there. That would maybe go to someone like Vodafone Giants, someone like Sinners. I think I think that it's a real test, of everyone on that team to be the favorites in a way, and maybe being expected to go up question more is, will they?
Well, time will tell. I mean, it's just predicting the future, so no big deal.
Zcon can only take them so far, can't they? I need to watch more of the team, so I can't formulate too much of an opinion. Zcon's a class player, as you say, but I don't know. Is this going to be a one-man team?
No, personally, I don't think, from what we've seen so far, it's been a one-man team. However, it's also not been a great team so far, but, you know, they swapped and changed in the middle of the season, the middle of the ESEA season, so pretty hard to judge them if they've only had like 2 weeks of crack and 3 games in that time. But I don't think it's a one-man team at least, so that's something. It is the first time in a long time as well where Seacon isn't playing with Lind, which is a bromance that's sad to see fall by the wayside. But still, great player, of course. They've got a couple other players. I think, as is usual, when he was on XTC, sort of overshadowed some of the other players that were really good. Ketz, I think, was a solid fragger last season when he played. Libin as well. I think he's the IGL, actually. XTC did have some interesting things going for them last season. They finished quarterfinal, if I'm not mistaken again, if my memory serves me right.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
For them.
Yep,
It
against
always
Budapest
does.
5. So
Wish me and you could swap memories, to be honest.
I don't.
In one ear and out the other with me.
Yeah, I don't wish I swapped it with you. I'll just say. There are also a bunch of teams in here that, you know, they've either come through the Raphael qualifier or they've been bought in by Raphael. That, you know, if you don't keep up with Raphael's qualifiers or the Raphael series, then I don't think you're not gonna know much about them. Someone like Trump 2020. More than the amusing name, I don't think people will know too much. But they are, from what I've seen, they're one of the better teams consistently in these types of qualifiers. Whether, again, it's all about a bunch of teams trying to just prove their point. Just them sort of, can they stick it out for a whole season with a bunch of best of threes with playoffs? A big question for me. Someone like, you know, there's a bunch of other teams as well. I mean, that everyone has a point to prove in challengers, but it's the point. If you prove your point, then the reward is quite large in that you get a majority of that £600 prize pool, and of course Season 8 Champions Division. You know, so you get to prove more points against way bigger teams.
Or just get demolished.
Again.
yeah.
Again, this is all hypothetical. We'll see, won't we? Is it first week of July or second?
Well, the Challenger starts this weekend, isn't it?
I think
it's Challenger this
I think
weekend?
it starts this week, not even the weekend.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and then I think the Champions Division will start.
It's a week after.
Yeah, I think it will start in July, sort of the second week of July, something like that.
Start of the second week, I think.
Sort of that 8th to 12th type of week. Regardless, there's a bunch to look out for. We'll of course be back next Monday to talk more about the Champions Division, sort of the very final predictions for that. Who's going to be the white horse? Dark horse?
White donkey, dark horse, isn't it?
And the pale donkey, of course. Yeah, a staple of our predictions. But all of that, I think we'll talk about next week. Maybe rounding up the first week of Challenger if there were any interesting games there. Of course, they aren't going to be streamed, the group themes games in there, but a lot of the Champions Division games are on this very channel, ESN_GG, so make sure to follow. Whether you're here for next week's podcast or just in general. Any other things before I do some admin and we get out of here?
I am not 100% sure about this, but I am I'm willing to gamble a little bit that Rafael is probably going to cast quite a few of the Portuguese games
Yeah,
in
dude,
the
like,
Challenger division.
please just follow Rafael Pai's
Honestly, like,
GK
he's done
on
so
Twitch
much. So yeah,
and
just
on Twitter.
Yeah.
give him a follow.
Yeah. Just
Yeah,
do
he's
it.
a really cool guy. So
Yeah.
he's
Definitely.
And what I would add is, just in case I'm not on another podcast of this for whatever reason, by the start of the next season, Cream Real Betis are my pick to win the league.
Ooh. Big
Straight
time.
up.
I've said it.
Any-
I don't need to rationalise it.
Any other
because I
big
don't really have
picks
anything to-
people want to
All
throw
I'll
in?
say is that the cream rises, the cream of the crop.
Yeah,
I
boring.
mean, granted, did not let me down last season, but I'm not going to give a prediction. So no, I'm not.
Grevling thinks Granite will win. Cool.
No.
Dan.
No, 9. That's my prediction. 9.
Oh, he said 9. All right, Dan.
I'm not gonna say they're gonna win,
Oh,
but I think
God.
Dr. Pepper. No, I will give who I think wins, but I think just as a point, I think Dr. Pepper team are actually gonna do pretty solid this season. Like I reckon they could get top 4, top 5. Honestly.
Do you like the team or the brand here, Dan?
Both.
I
No.
think Dan.
It's a good combination now, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's got best of both worlds.
If only there was a
Murder
team.
of
If only there was a team like called like Team Pringles or something, or like.
Get on that, Pringles.
Yeah, 9 is available. Go get a 9.
All right, you've said they'll do well, but is there any
Yeah,
team that will win?
I think in terms of winning, I think probably AGF maybe probably gonna win. That's what I'll say. I'll say AGF. I'll go on my gut and say
PNB God.
I hate to sort of echo someone in predictions front, but yeah, AGF to me.
Dan. Yeah.
I'm following Dan on this one. The reputable
There's
man.
no Project Aversio for me to gamble on this time.
Or any
No,
of
no,
those.
sure.
Yeah. All right.
There's any Regnant either, so that's also unfortunate for you, Strom.
Yeah. That'll have to get solved out, won't it? So
Buy out one of these teams.
We'll see about that, Grev. We'll see about that. Anyway.
Regnant sign Uganda juice. I can see the headline already.
That's been it from this week.
Frank.
Thank you for joining us. Dan Shan's been here.
Frank find their new home.
Stop. Thank you, Dan Shan, for being on. Thank you, Dom.
Yeah, it's okay. You don't need to go for any others now.
Thank you, Greg. And yeah, we'll see you back next week. All right,
you.
take care. Bye bye.